Yeah, ratings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you for a almost bracket busting type of weekend over in, multiple regions. Obviously, we'll start where we had the highest implication, and that is having teams season end, technically a split champion, even though we still have this whole conference championship. Of course, we're talking about the LTA, where we saw a miracle run both begin and end in the matter of a weekend. Of course, we're talking about 100 Thieves, who this playoff push has had an insane level up, but the level up needed to take down FlyQuest a little bit too high.
A little bit too high, and I think, frankly, for the LTA, a bit of a sigh of relief having 100 Thieves not be the champion. Nothing against the individual players, and yes, that miracle run that they were on, getting to those finals. But at the end of the day, having an organization that you are saying goodbye to at the end of this year, be the champion, be the one heading as that number one spot, wouldn't necessarily, I think, feel the best for the region.
And of course, we still have the Worlds qualification. 100 Thieves in this form should be a Worlds team at the very least, which even that is a little bit of a weird look for a team that is stepping out, bowing out from the league next year. But listen, credit where credit's due. The team fighting, confidence, and synergy out of 100 Thieves throughout, the series against Cloud9, and then they only leveled up to really completely dismantle Shopify and really gave FlyQuest the hardest test that they've had all split.
They did enough at the very least in all of their matches, and especially even that finals match against FlyQuest, that you can believe in this level up, this evolution of the squad, throughout this run. And I think you can still look towards that, the finals that we're going to have and where they can make that run to secure themselves a world spot, that they can continue to evolve, continue to level up, and continue to improve. I think especially with Dokla as part of this roster, six-man roster, whatever the combination is going to be and how they figure it out on and off the Rift, I feel like this 100 Thieves team has benefited from his addition.
Yeah, definitely. Having some coaching experience and leadership qualities and high-level emote games, spamming the NRG one, especially against Palafox, that was absolutely love to see that. But obviously they ran into, again, that wall we alluded to, and specifically the widest of Bwipos in games 3 and 4, the Aatrox and Gragas performances, obviously coupled with a lot of early game assistance from Mr. Inspired.
Yes, you can't forget about Inspired helping his top laner get ahead, get a lot of these advantages and things and whatnot. But it was Bwipo's performance, his confidence and cockiness at times on these champions that was making a difference, was setting these advantages in the table up for the rest of the FlyQuest members. I'm thinking especially going to that Gragas game and some of these extended fights that seem like he is absolutely out of his mind, caught out in certain situations, but he's just waiting for the rest of the squad. He's waiting for Bucios Rakan to come on through and make the saving play for him and the rest of the team. I think that when we're looking at FlyQuest and examining how good, how almost near perfect pretty much they have been this entire split, you got to be talking about Bwipo and his performance throughout this, and I think that's a really important sign for FlyQuest as they continue to move towards and have already locked up their spot at Worlds.
Yeah, what is it? Two games they've lost, all split basically. Obviously haven't dropped a series. What we did learn though is Quid absolutely is in that approaching superstar within the LTA, and whatever happens to 100 Thieves, he's going to be number one. People are calling for availability.
I think it was a situation where we imported over this amazing, what we thought could be a crazy sports car over from Korea that could give us that high octane, high horsepower driving down the California highways that you dream of when you're bringing over a player like this. Took some time, and I think then we did get to see a little bit of that horsepower, but we've stalled out. But we found ourselves a gas station is what I'm calling it this time around. We've refueled. We're back on the open road. And yes, Quid is performing at that type of level. And that is one of, again, alongside those changes, evolution, growth factor that you can talk about with 100 Thieves, you can look at Quid as at least bringing that star factor, which we all know, no matter how good a team is, it's extremely, unbelievably, I don't even know if we've seen it, type of rare to find one where it is all five equally contributing, equally pulling. You gotta have a star, a superstar that can step up, take that, pressure and shoulder that weight and be able to step up. And I think for this 100 Thieves team, yes, absolutely, you can point at someone like Quid, and especially maybe if he's getting a little bit of a boost from the back from your boy River in the jungle, definitely can be that type of star.
Yeah, probably the best mid lane jungle synergy that we have in the LTA. And remember when Quid was debuting, his first week or two, everyone was saying, I can't believe you brought this guy over. He's terrible, never start him. And now, well, he's probably been the best mid laner in the LTA going on maybe even 2 years at this point. Other bit we got to touch on from the weekend is that first start to this miracle run for 100 Thieves, and that is ending Cloud9, not just their playoff push, their entire season, and finishing outside. Listen, top 3 for this Cloud9 roster, how good they've looked in regular seasons, that seemed like a bare minimum. But now you have them losing in this fashion, and then the rare international performance they had where they bowed out against the CB LOL team, and this is right up there with some of the more disappointing seasons from Cloud9.
And it's tough because this lineup is this mixture that, again, I do favor where it is, young superstar, young talent to develop alongside some veteran players, experience and everything else with this lineup. You think that you'd be able to get through these type of moments, not have something like this happen. It does come through, this underperformance, this lack, this struggle, all sorts of things that have combined into this disappointing playoff run, and ultimately a disappointing year for Cloud9, not being able to advance through. Again, one of these ones where they're runner-up close, looking promising, looking like a contender all the way throughout first and second splits. Then you have, a banana peel type of moment, disappointment and embarrassment, I think, at the EWC. And then you come back, hopefully trying to disprove that, we are more so like what we have shown you at that top end of competition, as opposed to this recent international one. Didn't really do too much to change the opinion, I think, of some people. A little bit of some sunshine, but especially in these playoffs, the consequences of losing to a Shopify Rebellion, of being down in these matches against 100 Thieves, these are very real and very, again, at the end of this year, season ending for Cloud9.
Yeah, and not losing to the main rival in FlyQuest, not having them be the one that are ending their run. And again, it's the fashion that it happens. You're in a game 5 scenario against 100 Thieves. You have like a 3.5K gold lead in that all decisive game 5, and losing from that state of the game does not help the choker label that has now been stuck on Cloud9.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason for this Cloud9 organization, especially when you start to examine, well, okay, what pieces of this team are valuable, are ones that you want to continue to invest in, continue to develop, nurture, all sorts of things like that. And I think you can look at your 2 young star Korean players in Loki and Thanatos as both those options. You can be impressed and happy with that veteran aspect, that experience that some of these, players like Sven Vulcan are bringing to the team. I think maybe the angle, and it is a little bit crazy and not necessarily fully performance-based, but not, excluding performance as well, is looking at Blabber. I think that type of change, that type of, separation from the past and other iterations of this Cloud9 team, and bringing in a fresh breath of air, fresh view, fresh angle, all sorts of things like that, could be that angle to keep pushing Cloud9 further. But ultimately, this has got to be one of the top stinging defeat depression moments for Cloud9 fans.
You want to talk off-season skepticism in terms of a player move. How about Yike heading out and Skewmon coming in for G2? Initially, and for much of the year, you were going, I can't believe you did this, G2. Look at Yike going with Carmine Corp. But here we are, split 3 playoffs. G2 came roaring in with momentum. They dropped game 1. Yike's getting, he's out smiting Skewmon. You're saying, see, I told you And then we see Skumon 3 straight games play at an absolute MVP level, and G2 now clearly looking like the team to beat in Europe again.
Yes, this is the performance that you had been waiting all year for, I think, if you are a G2 fan, especially if you were one of these Skumon believers, which I don't think there were too many of them out there after some rough, some lean weeks throughout the starts of the year, and especially at MSI as well. Now, we are talking about him putting together this performance, and yes, an impressive one where you're rebounding after game one, and especially where Yike performing the way he did in game one and setting the table for this series. Very impressed by him individually, but I think, again, part of that is going to be that shout out to the experience on the side of G2, and as well how they're able to bring that out of him throughout the rest of this series. I think was really fantastic.
And obviously you see the confidence that G2, especially I think Broken Blade, is having. I think Kana and the bot lane matchup are the two, I don't want to say liabilities, but disadvantages you would have had G2 heading into this KC matchup, and both more than held their own. Hansama and Lebrov were coming out ahead in the later half of this series, which was at least a surprise to me, but confidence is there for G2, and the hesitation is there for KC. How many times did we see around Otacon or Baron, they want to contest and then they're running down and they end up just doing laps in the river because they're indecisive on whether or not to contest these main neutral objectives. And pretty much anytime you're hesitant on the Rift, it's usually going to result in a loss.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with weighing your options, right? No, totally okay. Making a calculated decision, choice, strategy, all those things. But if you're not able to come to that decision in almost rapid fire at this point, especially when the competition is as sharp as it was on the day and as prepared and experienced like G2 is when you're from that angle of Carmine Corp, you have to be able to get into that performance zone. And you didn't see it with a lot of these guys. Specifically looking for me, that bottom lane should have been one where you are able to generate those advantages, are able to be a power thing. And I think I do look at that again as an experience angle on where that difference is, and how you were able to play and be adaptable in these circumstances. You didn't see that on the side of Carmine Corp. You certainly did on the side of G2. And yes, Broken Blade, someone that has as well gotten his fair share of criticism and questions throughout the struggles of G2. But when they are at their best, he is a factor, and he is part of what makes that engine drive. Good to see it in this playoff series.
And you know what? It's been a long time that we've seen the beast of G2 like this, in this form, at this time of the year, because the last couple of years they've been winning so much in splits 1 and 2. It almost feels like they're burned out, lackadaisical, by the third split because they've been winning so much. But you go to this year, haven't won a single split, a disappointing international performance, and they look hungry. They look motivated across the board. They rightfully so. I think top to bottom have received their fair share of criticism. Cap's probably the least because he's the GOAT in the West and had another good series. But I'm just so excited to see this level from G2 and this level of, again, motivation and hunger this late in the year.
So I'm just reminded sometimes there is an angle, there is an evolution for a team where it is about, not about, the actual just raw performance. It's about, are you at that superstar dominant level? It's not about that. It's about that journey. It's that adversity that you go through that strengthens your own resolve, strengthens your connections with your teammates and your understanding of how you can best utilize yourself, your friends and everything else to become the champion you want to be at the end of the day. And I think for a squad like G2, especially some of these veterans, it's been quite a while since it has been a lean looking year like the way it has been for G2, and to reclaim that title, that kingdom of Europe for themselves would certainly be one of the best looking angles, launching points for G2 in towards our world championship.
And we'll see if KC bounces back in that loser's bracket, if Koi, Fnatic, or anyone else in the LEC can level up to reach G2 right now, because they are clearly the front runner and the nicest, shiniest looking sports car in the LEC garage right now. The garage in the LPL is it's getting messy. I know that we're in this massive bracket where everyone's getting second opportunities, but We almost had these brackets being busted across the board in the first weekend, and we start with the one that was the most surprising, and that is Anyone's Legend holding on to a Weibo grenade after some dominant game 4 to force silver scrapes. We had an incredibly tense back and forth fifth game that ends up having explosive team fights across the board, and it really comes down to both supports trading a few ints and face checking bushes that ends the series.
Oh man, what a rough way to end the series that had been as back and forth as the way it was, to have those two be the big moments. But yes, sometimes that's just the way it rolls, the way the dice lands in these type of ones. But I think somebody must have been promoting, must have been announcing, yep, World Championship is coming up. Come on, guys, get ready for Worlds type of things, because yes, Xiaohu is roaring back into action. Yes, Tian is back. Weibo is back and ready. I think there is certainly room and reason here to be excited about Weibo finding this type of form, more so than disappointment or frustration on the side of Anyone's Legend, because there is going to be that loser bracket opportunity for AL at this point that you're not necessarily selling out or wanting to get out from underneath there. But when you're looking at what went right for Weibo today and having them be another one of these teams that can contend, can make things very spicy within the LPL, that's what we wanted to see in these playoffs.
And we, were worried about AL heading into this matchup. It seemed like it was probably the worst matchup for them on paper, and that nightmare turned into a reality as they dropped down, and will have a long road back to defend their title down in that losers bracket. BLG almost followed or set the precedent for losing this one after falling down 0-2 to JDG, and now you're seeing Beishuan get subbed back in for Shadow, while Jun is kind of beaten up on his old team. I was legit scared for BLG. They need Knight to have a really solid performance. Elkin Bin put so much pressure on the Caitlyn Mordekaiser in Game 5. But now, going forward for BLG with this jungle situation, I got all-time low confidence in them.
I've got no confidence in this BLG team right now. I think there is individual aspects, one-offs, percentages that you certainly could look into or still believe in for this team, but having enough of them hit, right? Having that big betting parlay come through one after the other, after the other, after the other to hit your win condition of a BLG success story. I am not going to be on that ticket. I ain't invested in that one right now at this point. And especially, again, in comparison to what you still have available, what you still have seen in the LPL, I don't think there's a reason to. Yes, stays alive at this point. Yes, JDG, the problems that we know are still there for them as well. But I think at the end of the day, when we're talking about LPL power, Weibo steps out in front in this type of one. You're not necessarily fully out of the book on Anyone's Legend. I think almost everybody is out of the book on BLG at this point.
Especially now, looking forward, because they're still in that winner's bracket. You got IG next on the docket, and an IG that far and away had the most convincing series of the weekend. You can say EDG was the easiest opponent, but pretty clean 3-0 out of them. And anytime I'm saying clean with IG, well, I got to bat an eye and double take.
Yeah, I think certainly both of those statements can be true about IG being impressive and EDG being the easiest, most preferable matchup possible for IG at that point. But yeah, a clean 3-0 from IG. The way the Shy was looking, Rookie continues to look. Gala picking up the damage. Yeah, you certainly can be scared of this IG team and what we saw. And I think even more so, that coordination with the jungle is going to be that angle that you are questioning, that you are looking at in this next series for BLG, which IG, I've got no questions. I've got that big check mark for the way the crew is rolling. Questions for BLG.
And, you talk about that former BLG jungle carousel. Jun levels up against BLG. Is it Beishuan? Is it Shadow? Well, it's Wei on IG who's coming out on top. And you think Jun wants some revenge against his former squad? I think Wei is going to be a little extra motivated, and we just saw him pop off on a Zed performance.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly one of these angles that the veteran team, right? Again, remember, it is almost all veterans on this very experienced IG team, are going to be able to tap in to that emotion, into that angle, and understand how it can elevate, how it can help you focus within a series and run like this. no question that they're going to be prepared to take advantage of that.
And we'll see what the actual top seed, top Esports, who wasn't as clean, a little bit messy against the Ninjas in Pajamas. But again, we get to see Kanavi on Kiana, and this jungle meta makes top Esports still one of the most terrifying prospects to match up solely because of Kanavi.
Having the top meta options as well as the fringe options, I'll say, the outliers that still exist and are occasionally seen. Yeah, having Kanavi there and having how he is able to handle it, that is certainly going to be one of those angles that you can be scared of within the LPL and of the top power that can exist for a squad like Top Esports.
Last wrap up and the main wrap up for the LCK over the weekend was, of course, D plus Kia, letting Cajal and other fans live for another day as they make it to that main stage, and they have their best series of that play-in tournament against Nongshim. A very convincing 3-0, disappointing end for them, for basically everybody but Kingen, who actually played pretty well in that series. But D+, they're rewarded with a swift 3-0 with a date against T1 to kick off the playoffs.
Oh, baby. But, there's enough positive, I think, that went in that series for D plus Kia, despite most of it being, I think, disappointment on the side of Nongshim, the way that I think most people are kind of viewing that series. But for D plus Kia, yes, there's still enough of the hopium angle that you can take heading into this series that maybe this time away, T1 isn't going to be that tiger that we have seen them be since MSI. But I think you're betting against the numbers here if you're taking that angle for D plus Kia.
And how about T1 picking D plus over BNK Fearex? They're scared of El Diablo in the bot lane.
I think so. I think not necessarily maybe fully El Diablo, certainly respecting that he is part of what is making BNK that different animal, different fear. I think it's more so evaluating where you can take more advantage of your opponent and trying that type of angle right now, and maybe some of the volatility that we still have seen within a D plus Kia on any given day type of situation is what T1 is going for.
Yeah, they're not scared of any team, definitely, in the world, and definitely not BNK Fearex in that lower bracket. But much like the LPL, at the very least, if D plus loses, they will be in that losers bracket from the very get-go, as we do have an extended playoff run in the LCK as well. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolutely stunning individuals.